everyone, and welcome. I'm Jen, and I am so glad that you've taken the time out of your day today to join me for this Aging Advantage presentation. Today, we are going to be talking about our homes and the fact that home is really more than just four walls. It's really today's topic is going to be about understanding like housing resources. And also, then the second version that we're going to be talking about as well in this presentation is going to be how do we stay safe at home? What are things that we need to be aware of? And how can we age in place more safely at home and confidently and more independently? And so, Aging Advantage, that's one of our initiatives that we do. And so, we are able to partner with incredible organizations and through grant funding and donations here in the St. Louis area, we are able to support St. Louis and surrounding areas with this kind of educational content. And again, just hope you all are able to, learn some good information that you can take and apply and use in your own homes and in your own scenarios and situations, wherever it is that you live, not just necessarily here in the St. Louis area. So again, thank you for joining me and get cozy, grab whatever you're drinking, and let's dive in and get started. Let's start with, again, talking about our home. And, I think a big piece of this is what this talks about on this lower slide. Again, being able to support older adults really before the crisis happens. And, today we're going to be looking at how do we be proactive with some of these things. Again, I always tell you guys, first and foremost, our jobs are observation, right? And whether that is looking at the situation that's around us, again, maybe somebody that we're caregiving for, could also be, again, for ourselves, for a neighbor, for a loved one, or something to that effect. But, we have to, use all of our senses to look out for these things. So we have to see with our eyes and see what could potentially be an issue or a barrier or, again, a safety hazard. We need to hear, we need to listen to that person who's living in that environment and just really hear them to see, what are they saying? Like, are they saying that they're scared? Are they saying that, yeah, maybe they're saying when you ask them, like, when's the last time you took a shower? And literally, it might be 2 weeks. It might be longer. It might be a week or whatever that looks like. But then being able to listen actively and ask follow-up questions to that. So then you would maybe ask, okay, tell me more about that. What is challenging to you about taking a shower, and then think about all the different places and things that need to, happen and all the steps that need to occur for them to be able to take a shower. Maybe that means they have to go up the stairs because the bathroom they take a shower in is upstairs. And, they fell on the stairs at one point, recently or in the past. Or they can just tell with their own body how it's changing, that their legs just aren't as strong as they used to be, or maybe their balance isn't quite as good as it used to be. And so they're a little fearful, if we're being honest, to actually navigate and go up all those stairs to take a shower. Maybe the whole act of taking a shower themselves, is totally fine, but it's, what they have to navigate from a barrier standpoint to get to the shower. Or it could even be like the trying to step in and out of the tub, or something like that. If it's not a, zero entry walk-in shower kind of situation. So there's all kinds of things that we just have to kind of be aware of. And again, for us, For us people that aren't struggling with these types of tasks, we sometimes might, completely just gloss over it and not even think about it, like a rug being on the floor. We might think like, oh yeah, a rug is going to be great. It's going to warm up the space. Then we're not going to be walking, they're not going to be walking on the hard floor. We're going to put a rug down. Then maybe they won't slip or whatever. However, for them, trying to get their walker over the rug every single time is actually like a massive trip hazard potentially for someone, and it makes them nervous. And so they might just not even go in that room anymore a lot. Um, that rug isn't in whatever is happening in that room. They're also going to be then like not participating in activities or whatever kinds of things are happening in that room where there's that rug. They're just not doing it at all because they're trying to avoid the rug. So anyway, there's different things like that that we really just have to be respectful and cognizant of. And, I just kind of want you guys to think about those things. And I wanted to kind of lay some of those ideas out ahead of time. Before we get going, just to kind of open up your mind a little bit more from again, supportive, non-judgmental, like empathy standpoint, before we even, just get started. So today we're going to be talking about something really that touches all of us, home. Not just the building itself, but again, like what does home mean to us? Again, for a lot of people, it's going to be the comfort of familiar surroundings. A lot of people have memories that live within those walls and the feeling of safety and also independence that comes along with being in a place that is actually truly theirs. And they have that emotional and physical history and attachment to. For many older adults, staying in their home as they age is really one of their greatest priorities. And here's the good news. With the right information and the right resources, that goal is very much within reach for more people than might honestly think. But housing challenges, let's face it, are real. Costs are going up, and even like electric bills and water, sewer, all those things as well. Our costs are going up. Things are breaking down. Windows might need replaced. The stove might need replaced, etc. And our physical health also, those needs change over time. And sometimes, I really think it's hard to know like where to turn or even what help might even be available. And so that is exactly what we're going to be covering today. We're going to be going over in about the next 30 minutes or so. The information is going to be broad, but again, kind of like that important picture of the housing landscape for older adults. So we're going to talk about what housing security really means and why it matters so much to our health and our overall physical and mental and emotional well-being. We'll look at some of the most common challenges people face, like rising costs, utility bills, home maintenance for sure, and also accessibility concerns, like I discussed in the very beginning, when I was telling you guys kind of just be open to some of these different concepts that are actual real challenges. Then we'll spend a good amount of time walking through the services that are available to you as a person that might be caring for someone, or you as an older adult that would be able to help. And again, because there are like one thing I have learned in this role is there are so many more resources available to all of you than people even realize. So, as we talk about these things, start thinking also too about planning ahead and, having those trusted contacts important legal documents in order, and thinking through what aging in place really looks like. And we're going to close with some practical home safety checklists and some things that, I want you guys to be aware of and I want you guys to check for and talk about some takeaways and resources again that you all can start using today. But I think, one of the key things in there again is just having a plan in place and again, being proactive with these things as much as possible. And you guys have heard me use this word tons of times, I'm sure ad nauseum, but again, from a continuum of care standpoint, you have to kind of know where is, that person at today, your love, somebody that you're caring for, a loved one, or maybe again, that might be yourself, but where are they at today in terms of, navigating around mobility, mental cognition and all the things, like where are we at now versus depending on what kind of conditions they already might be starting to have now, like where is this going to go? So, just stopping and really having the awareness, like we talk about observation, but then really like accepting next, wow, didn't necessarily think we were going to be here, but we're here. Not how I was planning on having this go. And that could be a better or worse scenario, I guess, technically. But again, just accepting like, okay, this is where we are. And this is probably going to be how this is going to progress and what we're going to need eventually, to put in place. And again, just having those honest conversations with yourself, if you are the caregiver person, but also, with yourself as well, if you are the person who's trying to age in place at home. No, you might not have ever thought that you would be in a place where you needed a ramp to be able to get into your home, potentially from the outside, or that maybe you need one of those stair lift things. I call it the chair ride, but where you can get in the little chair that's attached, to the wall that goes up the side of your stairs. So you hop in, you buckle yourself in the chair, in the seat at the bottom of the stairs, and then the little chair goes and like takes you up the stairs to the top of the stairs. And then same thing when you come down, you put yourself in the seat and then you push the button and then it brings you down the stairs safely in the seat on a little track thing. And then when you get to the ride at the bottom of the stairs, you get back out of the chair. And so, again, like maybe some of those things might need to get in place. But again, looking at some of those practical home safety things that, we might need to start planning for and just kind of having that reality conversation with ourselves. And again, navigating those conversations again for somebody that we're caring for and start having the conversations is key. So if you've ever worried about how long you'll be able to stay in your home, or if again, you're caring for someone or supporting someone who has, this presentation is absolutely for you. So before we dive in to like the resources and some of the checklists, I want to spend a few minutes on the foundation of all of this, which is the concept of housing security. And I know a lot of us have heard that word thrown around sometimes, but what does it actually mean? And again, people use this word, I feel like in different contexts, but not everyone defines it the same way. So just know that. And that's worth really, that's why we're going to talk about it, taking a moment just to really to think about it and what it actually means and what it actually means for your situation. At the most basic level, housing security means having a safe, stable, and affordable place to live. It means you're not constantly worried about whether you'll be able to pay your rent or your mortgage. It means the roof over your head isn't literally going to fall in and cave in on you. It means that you can also get in and out of your home safely, like we talked about the ramp thing. But it also means that your home supports your daily life rather than working against it for you. So here's something that doesn't often get said enough, I don't think, especially, especially as a doctor, and supporting all of our social workers and case managers and care managers and all their clients. But, housing security is a health issue, literally. When people don't feel secure in their housing situation, again, physically, mentally, emotionally, etc., that stress has real effects on the body besides all the other stress that people are navigating health wise as they age anyway. So, when you have all this extra added stress, blood pressure is going to go up. People have a harder time sleeping because they just have all these thoughts that keep rolling around in their head. Depression and anxiety become way more common, especially, the anxiety part, but then, the depression aspect too, because people feel sometimes like hopeless because it's so overwhelming. They don't even know where to start. And it really can stress them out. But one of the things too that I see, again, as a doctor, and medically we do see, if you actually dive in and ask, again, actively listen and you ask more questions, people sometimes will actually postpone medical care because they're so focused on their immediate survival needs. And sometimes, again, they will postpone their own medical care because of the repair needs or the bills, the rising cost of bills that they're trying to face. Again, maybe their dishwasher just went out. And so again, instead of getting their heart test that they really need to get because they know, what their out of pocket expense is going to be on that, or their new deductible cost is going to be, or whatever, they'll actually postpone doing testing or getting care literally sometimes for months and months and months and months, sometimes a year or two, even, unfortunately, because they're paying those home repair bills because they had to get their windows fixed or something else, again, new dishwasher, etc. And or again, their electric bills going up again because it's over the summer or over the winter, gas bill or all the things. And so they're focused on how do I, pay all these bills. And for them also, that becomes an immediate survival need. And when, their housing situation becomes unstable, like when somebody then starts maybe facing eviction or the possibility of getting their water, electric, gas, whatever turned off, because they can't pay their bills, or food insecurity because they, don't have money for food or access then to food, these things, can become a major issue, living in a home, especially too, with like serious safety hazards as well, so like the physical and emotional toll on these people and also the people they caregive for, if we're having these real, open, honest conversations, can really take a toll and add up and just be like enormous again for the person that's going through it and experiencing it, but then it can also downflow as well and onto the people that are trying to caregive for them, especially if those lines of communication back and forth aren't honest and aren't clear and aren't open. And so I, really challenge you, if you are the person experiencing it or you're the caregiver person, to, again, just share vulnerably, openly, and honestly, with one another back and forth without judgment and without criticism and, without fear. And again, just try to be, open, try to have an open heart, open mind, and be compassionate and have empathy, and listen to one another back and forth, because that's the only way that then you all can like put a plan in place and figure out what needs to happen. But a lot of people also are afraid to actually admit out loud that these are the situations and these are the things that are occurring for them, especially if they're, the person living in the situation that needs, that needs help and needs resources from a housing security standpoint. And a lot of times too, we have to remember and be respectful that, these people who are aging, also they have a lot of pride. Um, and sometimes they have some ego also behind the fact that, they've always handled it themselves. They've always taken care of it their whole lives. They got this, it's fine. Well, yes, it's fine. And it has been fine for them, realistically and honestly, before in the past. But again, that was before the massive jump and rise that we have seen again in housing, costs, in interest rates, in rental costs, in water, in sewer, in electric, gas, like all these other bills, like, just even gas for driving your vehicle, et cetera. But like all of these costs around us, food costs and all the things are, continuing to rise. And so what amount of money that it took them before in the past to be able to get all of those needs met, and even just home repair costs, goodness, since COVID, and post COVID, the housing, rehab cost for getting things repaired has also skyrocketed. And even the cost on just some of the raw materials, like, like two by fours and, just different things like that, has also dramatically gone up. And so, again, just being honest and just saying, to ourselves, if we're the person going through the housing insecurity, like, yes, again, from a pride standpoint, like, yes, I totally have the skills to be able to navigate this. And I have navigated this my whole entire life just fine. But now, again, like the ball field has changed, the game has changed, all the housing, things and all the aspects that go along with it financially, it's like has changed and completely went up. It is a completely different landscape now. And so somebody that before could absolutely function solid, secure, with certainty, stability on their pension, maybe if they had a pension, and their social security, or maybe, if they had retirement or something, maybe not. But, what those numbers used to look like from having them, be able to pay all their bills and support all of these little things, repairs and stuff as they're coming about. Before in the past, that money used to go a lot further than it does now. And unfortunately, all that money that's coming in is a set amount of money, and all the costs of everything house-wise is continuing to rise. And so, I think again, just pausing and giving ourselves the grace, again, from a pride standpoint, to say, like, yeah, I know how to navigate this. I absolutely do. But from an honest conversation standpoint, again, we're not talking, apples to apples. The landscape and, the situation from a bills standpoint and just affording life standpoint now is not the same as it used to be. So honestly, like, yes, if you are the person in the situation, like I said, trying to navigate through some of the housing security stuff yourself, having an honest conversation again with yourself and, people that are around you, trying to care for you, and just being okay and accepting it, and just saying, like, yeah, like I actually need help. I need some resources. there's ways. I really need to figure this out. And, do you know anyone that can help? Because I need help. And just know that, again, that's not you being small. That's not you being weak whatsoever. That's you being honest and you taking care of yourself. And, first and foremost, that's what you have to do. But again, you have to be honest with yourself and the people that you're caring for. And so, I think for older adults, specifically, that's where these stakes are just even higher. Because if a person falls in a home, for example, that hasn't been set up with their changing mobility in mind, the consequences can be severe or deadly even. And if someone, is living without adequate heat because they can't afford their utility bills, like we just talked about, or same thing, they're in the heat because they can't afford, air conditioning bill, like in the summer, the health risks are serious. So, if a person is isolated in a home that's becoming too difficult to maintain, that isolation then, can feed into depression, which, as we learned a couple a couple of presentations ago, can also then feed into cognitive decline as well when that anxiety and depression starts to kick in. And that is not what we want. So when we talk about housing resources today, we're not just talking about practical logistics. I want you guys to be thinking about, and again, talking about, how do you really protect your health? We're talking about preserving your independence, yes. And that's, ideally what the housing security means, and being able to help support you all in aging in place, as we call it. But again, we're also really talking about giving you and your family, or the people caregiving for you as well, that peace of mind, which is something like every one of us absolutely, deserves. So, I would just challenge you to, again, look at, okay, what are you contributing to the situation? Where are you maybe, not being honest with yourself, or again, with a loved one, and, people that are potentially caring for you. And, what can those challenges really look like, if we're being honest. And, again, I think especially, from a doctor's perspective, having things in place, such as, support for someone to get, in and out of the shower, working even with, and we're going to get into this, like dig into all these topics, like, later, more granular, but just kind of surface as we get started. And again, I want to just bring these up so you guys kind of can start thinking of these examples as we're, kind of going through. But even being able to have like occupational therapy come in, for example, to the home, or physical therapy come in to the home, and teach them how to navigate getting in and out of the shower. Teach them, teach the person, again, like how do we need to navigate going up and down these stairs? And again, they might have stairs that they have to do going in and out of their home. So maybe, for example, what that might look like is they park in the garage, but then they have to go up like a couple stairs to get into their actual house. And a lot of times, again, somebody looking from the outside in, we don't think about that, because we just think about, oh, okay, yeah, they have a front porch and there's 3 steps to get up, or there's 5 or 10 steps that they would have to go up outside to get into their house. But we don't think about, well, what does that look like when they take the dog out in the backyard, or they have to go on the deck and then they have to walk down all these stairs and then walk all the way back up. Or again, we need a ramp. People will think like, oh yeah, okay, we got these 5 stairs, going from outside the person's home to on their front porch, okay, to get in the house, right? So we need a ramp there. Great. But then they don't think about, oh, well, actually, in the garage, they have three stairs that they have steps that they have to go up to get from the garage into the house. So there's no hand railing, there's no ramp, there's no nothing there. Um, yeah, they got to just walk up these stairs and navigate that themselves. And so, again, or same thing for the back of the house, right? So we just have to try to really, again, just pause for a second and make sure that we're looking at the whole entire picture because, again, maybe making things safe might mean putting in a handrail in the garage, where they're going to walk up those three stairs. Maybe just those three stairs need a handrail and then they're good. Or maybe we actually put the ramp in the garage. But then you have to think about, okay, what if something would happen per se and the power goes out or something and they can't open the garage door to get in the garage and then they don't have that ramp? Okay, well, we need a backup ramp. So are we going to put that in the back of the house, to get in the back of the house? Are we going to put the extra ramp in the front of the house, the side of the house? Where's that going to go? So, I think some of it, and again, I just want to bring some of these little bits and pieces up to you all as we are getting started here in this first part so that you all can think about, some of these different scenarios just to really be aware of, again, just the full picture as, the full picture as we get going. So, again, thank you guys for joining me for this part one. We will continue with part two and really, again, just kind of dig into some of the more like common challenges that we see and again, ways to kind of navigate through some of this because, again, some of this stuff, when you stop and think about it, might be like, oh yeah, now that you say that, okay, that makes sense, and it's kind of obvious, but how do you navigate it? Again, what are we looking for? And how do we have those honest, real conversations? So thank you all for joining me today. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next part.